He didn't look at her when he handed her the key. Just let the cold silver rest in her palm, his fingers grazing hers a second too long. And in that second, God help her. Her breath caught. She knew this was a job, she reminded herself again. But the way Tony Navarro stood there, shirt half unbuttoned, eyes dark and unreadable, made it feel like something else. His voice was low, controlled. You're free to come and go, but while you're here, the mansion is yours too. And now, hours later, barefoot in his hallway and wearing nothing but silk, Janelle opened the front door and saw the one woman she didn't expect. "Briella," she said softly. "The ex. Hey, welcome to Mr. Leonardo's stories. If you're new here, you're in for a ride full of love, heat, and heart. If you're returning, I appreciate you deeply. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a situation thinking it was all business, only to find yourself tangled in something you couldn't control? This story is about chemistry, class, and choices. So, if you enjoy stories with strong women, billionaire tension, and slow-burning romance that doesn't rush, like the video, share it, comment your favorite moment, and subscribe so you never miss what happens next. Let's begin. Janelle Rousseau wasn't one to chase opportunity. She let it find her, quietly, cleanly, and always on her terms. That's why when she arrived at the Navarro estate, she wore confidence like a second skin. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun, her blouse crisp, heels clicking, against the marble with a rhythm that said, "I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to deliver results." Tony Navarro watched from the top of the staircase, silent, still. He didn't make a habit of hiring women like her. Most of the consultants he'd worked with were cold, mechanical, corporate. But this woman? She moved with purpose and style. There was something lived-in about her elegance, something deliberate about the way she carried her tote bag and didn't fidget when he kept her waiting. He liked that. "Ms. Rousseau," he said as he descended the stairs, voice calm but firm. "Thank you for coming." She looked up at him without flinching. "Mr. Navarro." He offered his hand. She shook it. No smile, but no ice either. Warm skin, cooler tone. "You read the brief?" he asked, leading her through the foyer. "I did," she said. "You want to stage this property for sale, refine the look, update the feel, create emotional appeal." His lips curved just slightly. "Your reputation is accurate. I prefer to show results over promises." They walked into the living room. Floor-to-ceiling windows let in soft afternoon light. The space was stunning. High ceilings, soft wood tones, elegant touches. It didn't need much, but she knew exactly what needed to shift. She placed her folder on the glass coffee table and opened it. But Tony didn't sit. Instead, he crossed to the fireplace and said, "I want to propose something different." Janelle paused. She hated surprises. He turned to face her fully now, leaning a hand on the mantel. "I don't want you commuting," he said. "I want you to move in." Silence. Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" He didn't blink. "I want the property to feel lived in, comfortable, not staged. I have no interest in making it look like a museum. The best way to do that is to actually live in it." Her laugh was short, not unkind. "You're suggesting I pretend to be your live-in designer?" "Not pretend," he replied. "You'll have your own quarters, privacy. I won't interfere with your work." Janelle studied him. His posture was relaxed, but his jaw was tight. This wasn't about the property, not entirely. "Why now?" she asked. "This house has been off market for over a year." He walked closer, stopping only when he stood across from her, the table between them. "Let's just say I'm ready to move forward," he said quietly. "And I want someone here who knows how to make people feel something." Her breath caught. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. Like he'd been hollow for too long and only just realized it. Janelle tapped her nails against the folder. 2 weeks. No more. His eyes met hers. "Agreed. Full creative control," she added. "Of course." She straightened. "And I want everything in writing." He stepped toward her. No smirk, no charm, just steady intensity. "I already drafted the contract," he said, reaching into a leather folder. When he handed her the papers, their hands touched, barely. But she felt it. And, judging by the shift in his gaze, so did he. Her quarters were on the east wing. Not a guest room, a suite. A full living space. Modern, neutral, expensive, but quiet. Soft bedding. Stone-tiled bathroom. A closet larger than her first apartment. Janelle unpacked one bag and hung her jackets neatly. She didn't need to stay long to make an impression. She'd done this sort of job before. Clean, professional, results-driven. So why did her hands linger on the edge of the vanity, her mind still circling back to the look in his eyes? Dinner was not part of the deal. But a few hours later, when she stepped into the dining room to grab a bottle of water, she found him seated. At the head of the long table, sleeves rolled, tie discarded, a half-finished bourbon in his hand. "Long day?" she asked lightly, pausing at the doorway. He looked up, like he hadn't heard her come in. "Long year," he muttered. She walked in, not quite sure why. Maybe it was the way his shoulders slumped just slightly. Maybe it was the fact that she didn't usually get involved, but somehow she was already involved. "I'll be shifting the lighting fixtures in the foyer tomorrow," she said, reaching into the fridge for sparkling water, "and replacing the rug. The current one is too flat." He nodded. "Do whatever you think works." She turned to leave, but he said, "You're different." She paused. "In what way?" she asked. He swirled his drink slowly. "Most people try to impress me. You don't." She raised a brow. "You're not the one I'm trying to impress." For a moment, he didn't answer. Then, "I like that." Janelle didn't smile, but something flickered in her expression. She left the room with that flicker still warm on her face. By midnight, the mansion was quiet. Silent halls, dim lighting. No sound but the occasional soft creak of old beams settling. In her suite, Janelle stood by the window. She could see the reflection of the hallway behind her. She watched as his shadow passed across it. Not approaching, just passing. She closed the curtains. This job was going to be more complicated than she thought. But she wasn't afraid of being complicated. She was only afraid of getting comfortable. And Tony Navarro? He was dangerously comfortable to look at. And even harder to ignore. Janelle liked structure. She liked rules. Clear ones. The morning after she moved in, she was up by 6. Showered, hair tied back in a soft bun. Ivory blouse tucked into black, tailored slacks. No makeup, just lip gloss. She didn't need flash. She was the kind of woman whose presence did the talking. By 7, she was already walking the mansion's main floor, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp. She didn't expect Tony to be awake, so when she turned the corner toward the library and saw him standing, at the window in a grey Henley and dark lounge pants, she stopped. He didn't turn to look at her. "You're early. So are you." He sipped his coffee, then finally glanced back. His eyes dragged over her slowly, not inappropriately, but with an intensity that lingered. "I'm used to waking alone," he said simply. "Same." The room was filled with quiet. Not tension, not discomfort, just a silence that made the air feel heavier than it was. She nodded toward his mug. "I can brew a better roast than whatever you're drinking." He raised a brow. "You think so?" "I know so." That earned the tiniest smirk from him. "Kitchen's all yours." In less than 10 minutes, she had the beans ground, the espresso brewed, and the froth swirling into the cup. She handed it to him with one hand, the other resting on her hip. "Try that." Tony took a sip, paused, looked at the cup like it had revealed a secret. "Okay," he murmured. "That's not bad. It's perfect." She turned and reached for her tablet. "Now, about the foyer." "Before we get into that," he interrupted gently, "I think we should talk about boundaries." Her head tilted. "Go on." He set the mug down and leaned against the counter. "This house is a lot. It holds history. Some good, some not You mean your ex? Janelle said plainly. His eyes didn't flinch. Among other things, she didn't press. She waited. Tony studied her. I don't like noise. I don't like mess. I don't like people trying to fix me. Good, Janelle replied. I'm not a therapist. I'm here to fix your house. That made him laugh. Quiet and deep. I'd like us to be civil, he said. Respect space. Meals can be shared or separate. No pressure. Fine. No guests unless discussed. Agreed. And no blurred lines. That gave her pause. She looked up from her tablet, met his gaze head on. Blurred lines. He held her stare. I don't want this to get complicated. Janelle stepped forward. Not too close. Just enough to be clear. I never mix business with anything else, she said smoothly. But let me make something plain, Mr. Navarro. Tony, she repeated. You're not someone I chase. You hired me. You want the best. I deliver, but I don't play games. So if you're worried about lines, don't flirt with me. That silenced him. Not because she was harsh, but because her honesty disarmed him in a way he didn't expect. He nodded once, slowly. Understood. The day moved forward like a quiet song. She started with the foyer, swapped the entry rug for something plush but understated, cream and sand tones. She ordered new sconces, made notes about the artwork. It needed updating. Tony watched from a distance, occasionally leaning against a doorway, occasionally pretending not to look when she bent over a fabric sample or adjusted a chair. At noon, she skipped lunch, too focused. At one point, she asked his opinion on a light fixture. At 2, they stood shoulder to shoulder in the second parlor debating whether a brass or matte black chandelier better suited the ceiling. Matte, she said. Brass, he replied. They both crossed their arms. You want warmth, she said. Brass fights the cool tone of the walls. And matte feels too industrial for this space. They looked at each other. You're stubborn, he said. She raised a brow. Says the man who hired me for my taste. He smiled. Not a full one, but enough to change his whole face. Go with Matt, he said after a pause. But only because I want to see if you're right. I am. By late afternoon, Janelle finally retreated to her suite for a break. She slipped off her heels, undid her hair, changed into a slate blue wrap dress and walked barefoot to the minibar in her lounge. She poured herself a small glass of wine and curled onto the chaise by the window. Just for a moment. Just to breathe. She didn't realize she'd fallen asleep until a soft knock woke her. She sat up. Yes? Tony's voice came through. You decent? Barely, she said before thinking. She bit her lip. The door creaked open slightly. He stayed on the other side of it. I just wanted to let you know dinner's ready. I ordered Thai. Didn't know your preference. She stood, smoothing her dress. I like Thai. He hesitated. You don't have to join me. I know you said we could eat separately. I'll be there in 10. She didn't wait for a reply. She needed the control back. Dinner was served in the smaller dining room. Just the two of them. Bamboo plates, dim lights, soft music playing low. They ate quietly at first. Then he asked her what her childhood home looked like. Small, she said. Clean. Books everywhere. My mum taught high school English. Is that why you speak like that? Like what? Like your words weigh something. She paused. No. That's just how I learned to hold power. He nodded, impressed. She asked about his past. He shared only fragments. He'd built his real estate empire from 3 homes flipped in his 20s. He'd made too much money too fast. Trusted the wrong people. Briella? She asked carefully. He sipped his wine. She was part of it. Not all. You still love her? He looked at her for a long time. No, I just never figured out why I let her stay so long. That's harder, she said softly. The regret of permission, that landed. They said nothing for a while. At the end of the meal, he stood first. Gathered the plates. You cook too? she asked, surprised. I used to. Before life got too expensive. She followed him into the kitchen, watching as he rinsed the dishes. Thank you for dinner, she said. Thank you for making the house breathe again. Their eyes met. Too long, too still. She felt her pulse quicken. He was standing too close now, not touching her, not saying anything suggestive, just there. And the way he looked at her, she turned away first. I'll see you in the morning. He nodded once. Good night, Janelle. That night, she stood by her bedroom mirror, brushing her hair. She thought about his hands, strong, controlled, careful with the plates. She thought about the way his voice softened when he said her name. No blurred lines, they agreed, but the air between them, already blurred, already burning, and she hadn't even touched him. Yet, by the third day, Janelle knew every echo in the house. She could hear the soft clink of Tony's glass when he poured his evening bourbon, the smooth roll of his footsteps across the marble hallway, the faint shift in air pressure when he passed by her suite and paused for a moment too long before walking on. They didn't speak of those pauses. They didn't need to. That morning, Janelle adjusted the layout in the living room. Subtle, intentional touches. She swapped the glass sculpture on the coffee table with a stack of soft-bound design books and set a single white orchid in a ceramic vase beside it. Tony stood in the doorway, arms crossed. It's warmer now. That was the point. You have a gift. She looked up at him. I have taste. The gift is knowing when to stop. Their eyes held again. It was becoming a habit. She made lunch that day. Not by plan. It just happened. She was in the kitchen testing new place settings when he walked in shirtless, towel slung over his shoulder, damp from a workout. She glanced once, then focused on her plate. You're not working today? He asked. This is work. Right. The kitchen plates. She didn't bother correcting him. Instead, she gestured to the island. You want something? He opened the fridge. Surprise me. She plated roasted chicken, avocado toast, and citrus salad. Minimal. Beautiful. He took a bite and leaned back on the stool. I underestimated you. She smiled without smiling. Most men do. Most men are idiots. And what are you? He looked at her slowly. A man trying not to cross lines. There it was. The space between them hummed. She picked up a glass of water, took a slow sip, and didn't reply. That night, they ended up on the back patio. It wasn't planned. Janelle had stepped outside for air, wearing a thin robe over her tank and pajama shorts. She hadn't expected him to be there, barefoot, drink in hand, staring at the dark trees. She nearly turned back, but he saw her. Don't go, he said. She didn't. He pulled out a chair for her. She sat. The robe slipped slightly down her shoulder, exposing her collarbone. She didn't adjust it. They didn't talk much at first. The silence was different now. It wasn't avoidance. It was understanding. He finally said, This house was supposed to be a fresh start. Janelle turned her head. Was? I brought Briella here thinking we'd build something new. But you can't build something real with someone still performing. She was pretending? He looked at her. We both were. She didn't pry. Instead, she said, A home doesn't change people. It reveals them. He looked at her then. Fully. Slowly. You always speak like that. Only when I mean it. They didn't break eye contact. The tension pulled tight. He reached for her hand, not all the way. Just enough to skim her fingers. I should go, she whispered. You should. But she didn't move. He leaned in, close enough to smell her skin, warm and faintly sweet like vanilla and wine. Their lips brushed, soft, breathless, but he pulled back. Hard. Sorry, he muttered. That was... I didn't stop you, she whispered. His chest rose and fell. That's why I had to. She stood, eyes burning, breath unsteady. She didn't say goodnight. She walked away. And this time, she didn't hear him follow. The next morning, she worked in silence. No eye contact. No soft remarks. Tony tried twice to initiate small talk. She nodded, answered, and kept walking. By noon, he stopped trying. By 5, he found her in the library, seated cross-legged on the couch, reviewing swatches. He didn't speak right away. He just watched her. "You don't have to tiptoe," she said without looking up. "I'm not," he replied. "I just don't want to disrespect you." "You didn't." "Then why won't you look at me?" She raised her eyes slowly. "Because you keep pretending that what's happening between us is an accident." Tony walked in, closed the door, sat across from her. "You think I don't want you?" he said, voice low. "I think you're used to controlling everything. But not this. I kissed you because I wanted to, and you pulled back because you're afraid." That hit him. "I've lost too many things I cared about," he admitted. "I'm not asking for forever." He leaned forward. "Then what are you asking for?" "Honesty," she said. "Presence. Respect. You have all of that." Their eyes met, but this time they didn't move closer. This time, restraint became the loudest desire in the room. Later that night, Janelle stood at her vanity, brushing her curls loose. She thought about his lips, the tension in his hands, the way his voice cracked slightly when he said her name. Her heart wasn't racing. It was pulsing, not from nerves, from knowing. She knew he'd knock again. She knew he'd wait on the other side. But tonight, she wouldn't answer. Because what they were building, whatever it was, deserved time. And real tension? The kind that lasted? It didn't beg. It waited. The house had changed. It wasn't the furniture, or the lighting, or the art Janelle had yet to select. It was the silence. It used to be cold, distant, like a waiting room with no exit. Now it pulsed, with energy, with breath, with them. Tony hadn't knocked the night before. He hadn't come to the kitchen the next morning either. But Janelle knew he was near. She felt it in the way the air shifted when he passed her office, in the way his scent, clean, warm, masculine, lingered in the hallway just a little too long. She wouldn't chase him, but she wasn't hiding either. By noon, she was in the sunroom, reviewing color palettes, soft neutrals, bold contrast options. Nothing felt right. The room didn't need a color update. It needed something else. It needed laughter, movement, touch. She stood, frustrated, walked to the bar cart, poured water into a crystal glass, and stared out at the garden. Too quiet? She turned. Tony stood at the entrance. His voice was low, a little rough, like he hadn't slept, like he'd thought too much. She didn't answer his question. She simply said, "You're up late today." "I didn't sleep much." "Me neither." Their eyes met. This time, neither looked away. He stepped inside, slowly. "I've been trying to work it out in my head," he said. "How to keep this professional." She raised a brow. "You want to keep pretending?" "No," he said, voice steady. "I want to stop pretending you're just here to stage my house." Janelle placed the glass down. Then stop. A beat. Tony walked closer. Slow, deliberate. He didn't touch her. "You came in like a breath I didn't realize I was holding," he said. She swallowed. He reached for her face, fingers just brushing her jawline. "And every time I try to be cold with you, I fail." Janelle leaned in, just enough to feel his breath. "Then don't be cold." Their kiss wasn't explosive. It was slow, deep, intentional, the kind that doesn't rush, because it doesn't need to. His hands framed her face. Hers clutched the lapels of his shirt. And for a long, quiet moment, they didn't come up for air. When they finally parted, she didn't look shaken. She looked grounded. He stepped back slightly, eyes searching hers. "I'm not good at this." She gave a small smile. "Then don't overthink it. Just be in it." They didn't sleep together. Not that night. The kiss was enough. For now, it changed everything. That evening, Janelle joined him on the patio again. This time, barefoot in black leggings and a cropped cream sweater. Tony wore soft slacks and a white t-shirt. They didn't touch, but their shoulders leaned in. Their knees brushed lightly. They talked about dreams, fears. She told him about the design firm she used to work at, how they tried to box her into a template. He told her about the deal he nearly lost when Briella went to the press after their split. It wasn't just betrayal, he said. It was public humiliation. People assumed I was the one who broke her. You were both broken, Janelle said softly. You just didn't pretend to be whole. Tony stared at her. The way she said it, the way she saw him. You always speak like a mirror, he whispered. No, she said, eyes locked on his. I just stopped lying to myself a long time ago. Later, in her room, she touched her lips. The memory of his mouth still burned against hers, but it wasn't lust that haunted her. It was the way he kissed her like she mattered, like he hadn't kissed anyone in a long time, and didn't want to ruin the chance. The next morning, he was already in the kitchen when she walked in. He handed her a mug. Fresh brew, just the way she made it. Learning fast, she said. Only from the best. She took the cup. Their fingers touched. No flinch. No retreat. He leaned against the counter, watching her as she sipped. I meant what I said yesterday. I know. You scare me a little, Janelle. Because I don't need you? Because you make me want to be needed again. She paused. Set the mug down. Walked to him. Don't be afraid of that. He reached for her waist, held her gently. They didn't kiss again. Not then. But his hands stayed on her hips longer than they needed to. And she didn't move away. That afternoon, she worked in the library. He brought her a glass of wine without asking. She gave him the remote and let him pick the music. He chose jazz, low and moody. The air between them felt like velvet. Smooth, heavy, expensive. Later, as she passed the hallway, he reached out, stopped her gently. Come here. She stepped into his space. He tucked a curl behind her ear. No words, just heat. She smiled. I thought we agreed to take it slow, he whispered. This is slow. The knock came just after 7. Sharp, confident, like someone who never questioned their right to be let in. Janelle had just finished plating dinner, grilled salmon, buttered asparagus, and roasted garlic potatoes. Tony was upstairs changing. She wasn't expecting anyone. The staff didn't knock. She walked to the front door slowly, wiping her hands on a towel. When she opened it, the woman standing on the porch didn't smile. She didn't flinch either. Sleek black dress, gold earrings. Expensive perfume was already thick in the evening air. Eyes rimmed in liner, lips bold and red. Hello, the woman said, tilting her chin. I'm looking for Tony. Janelle kept her tone smooth. He's not available at the moment. Of course he's not, she said coolly, stepping forward without being invited. You must be the reason. Janelle didn't move. And you are? Briella, she said with a tight smile. Briella Kingston. There it was. The X. The scandal. The woman behind the walls. Tony was still learning how to let down. Janelle didn't blink. Briella's eyes traveled over her. From her bare feet to the soft wrap dress she wore to the calm expression that didn't break. Interesting choice, Briella murmured. Tony usually prefers women with a little more sophistication. Janelle stepped aside. Not for Briella. For herself. You can wait in the front room. Oh no, Briella said, stepping past her anyway. I know my way around. Of course she did. Tony appeared at the top of the stairs moments later. Shirt half-buttoned. Expression unreadable. Briella, he said, voice flat. She turned toward him with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd check on the house. This house isn't yours anymore. She looked around slowly. So I see. Her gaze landed on Janelle again. Quite the transition. Janelle didn't speak. Tony walked down the stairs and stopped beside Janelle. He didn't touch her. Didn't need to. His presence was enough. What do you want? He asked Briella. She tilted her head. Maybe to see what you've replaced me with. Janelle let out a soft, measured breath. Not irritation, not submission. Composure. She looked at Briella, direct, poised, still. You're not being replaced, she said evenly. You were just removed. Tony's jaw tensed. But he didn't interrupt. Briella let out a tight laugh. Cute. Does she always speak in Instagram captions? Janelle stepped back. I'll give you both a moment. Tony caught her wrist gently. Stay. His voice was soft, but solid. Janelle stayed. Briella's smile faded. Wow, didn't take you long, did it? Tony didn't raise his voice. Don't do this here. I'm not doing anything, she said with fake innocence. I just came to check on the man I once loved, and the house I helped decorate. You came to mark your territory. No, Briella said, brushing her hair back. I came to remind you what you walked away from. Janelle turned then, not to retreat, but to finish setting the table. If Briella wanted to perform, she wasn't going to get an audience. Tony followed her into the dining room minutes later. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Why? She asked, not looking up. For having a past? Or for not locking the gate? He stepped closer, for letting her in, physically and emotionally, for too long. And now, for letting her bring that energy to you. Janelle finished placing the napkins. She wanted to shake me. She didn't. No, Janelle said calmly. She didn't. He touched her back, lightly. Just a hand, but it said everything. I should have handled that better. You did fine. No, he said, voice lower. I should have never let her inside. Janelle finally turned to face him. You're allowed to have a history, Tony. He studied her. You're not jealous? No, she said softly. Because I don't need to be. His jaw flexed. She's noise, Janelle added. And I only invest in things that make sense to my peace. They ate dinner quietly after that. No music, no jokes, just them. When he reached for her hand across the table, she let him hold it. When his thumb brushed her wrist slowly, she didn't pull away. But she didn't melt either. She held his gaze. She let him feel her stillness. And when he leaned in after the plates were cleared, when he kissed her again, this time longer, deeper, steadier, she pressed into it. Not like a woman needing comfort, like a woman claiming clarity. Later, as they walked the hallway in low light, his arm brushed hers. He stopped by her suite. His voice was quiet. Would you invite me in if I asked? She turned to him. Would you come in just to escape her, or because you're ready to be here? With me. He swallowed hard. That's what I thought, she said gently. Good night, Tony. She closed the door. Tony stood there for a long time. No anger, no shame, just respect. She wasn't easy. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't chasing him. And for the first time in years, he realized he wanted to be chased, but only by her. Tony didn't sleep. He sat in the dark corner of his office with a glass of untouched bourbon and the weight of every word Janelle hadn't raised her voice to say. She didn't slam the door. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't walk away in anger. She told the truth and left him to sit with it. That was worse. And somehow better, because she gave him a choice, and he was tired of choosing wrong. The next morning, the sun slipped through the mansion's wide windows in soft streaks. The house felt different, not tense, not cold, quiet, but not the kind that pushed you out, the kind that waited for you to step in. Janelle was already in the breakfast room, sipping tea by the window in a pale grey robe tied at the waist. She wore no makeup. Her curls were loose and still damp from the shower. She looked like comfort, but sat like steel. Tony entered without a word. She didn't look up. Not yet. He waited until she finished her sip. Then he said, I didn't come to apologize again. She met his eyes. Good, because I wasn't waiting for one. He stepped closer. But I do need to say this. She held his gaze. Quiet. Open. I've never had someone check me with that much grace, he said slowly. No yelling, no jealousy. Just truth. Janelle set her cup down. I don't fight women for men, and I don't beg for energy I didn't ask to receive. He swallowed hard. She continued. You said no blurred lines, but you blurred them. You kissed me, touched me, fed me, lingered in doorways. That's intimacy. That's not neutral. Tony nodded once. Slowly. You're right. I'm not asking for a label, she said. But if you want to touch my skin again, Tony, you better come to me as a man who knows what he wants. I do. Do you? He moved closer. One step, then another. I want you. Her chin tilted. For the night? No. For the tension? No. He was inches from her now. His voice dropped. I want you in my space, in my peace, in my future. Silence. Then, say it again, she whispered. I want you. He reached for her slowly, one hand cupping her jaw, the other brushing the belt of her robe. I'm not running from anything tonight, he said. I'm running to you. The kiss was fire, not rushed, not wild, but deep, hot, needy, like they'd both held back too long and finally gave in. His lips moved with purpose, pressing, tasting, breathing her in. She rose to meet him, her fingers threading into his shirt, tugging him down to her level. When he lifted her onto the breakfast table, she gasped softly. He froze. Tell me to stop. She pulled him closer. Don't you dare. They didn't rush upstairs. They stayed there, in the soft morning light, tangled in heat and quiet. Moans, robes slipping, hands learning curves and scars and sighs. It wasn't messy. It was intentional. It was surrender. Later, in her bed, wrapped in sheets and soft breath, Janelle lay with her head on his chest. His fingers moved slowly up and down her spine. No one said a word, because the silence had changed again. It wasn't space. It was safety. She pressed her lips to his shoulder. I don't want to fix you, she murmured. I don't want to break you, he whispered. You won't. I could. Then don't. He turned to face her. His eyes were bare. No shield. I've never felt this quiet with someone, he said. Even when you speak. Good, she replied. Because I never wanted to be noise. He kissed her again. Slow. And this time, there was no pullback, no guilt, no hesitation, just them. The next morning, she woke first. She didn't move to get up. She studied him, the curve of his jaw, the way his lashes curled slightly at the ends, the softness in his brow. The man everyone saw in headlines and business journals wasn't this man. This man, Tony, was quiet, present, real. And this was the version she would never fight another woman for. Because this version was already hers. He stirred, reaching for her waist instinctively. When his eyes opened, he smiled. Lazy, warm. She kissed his chest. Hungry? She asked. For food? She smirked. Yes. Starving. They laughed. In the kitchen, she made eggs. He toasted bread. She plated. He poured juice. They didn't say relationship. They didn't say this is official. But the table was set for two, and both chairs were filled. She didn't mean to stare. But there was something about watching a man move through a space he once guarded like a fortress, now softened by her presence. Tony stood shirtless in the kitchen, light sweatpants hanging low on his hips, hair tousled, barefoot, at ease. He poured coffee like he belonged there, like they belonged. Janelle leaned against the doorway, silk robe barely tied. No bra, no effort, just a woman, all woman. His eyes found her before she spoke, and when he did, he paused mid-pour. Don't look at me like that, he said. Like what? She teased. Like you know exactly what you did to me last night. She stepped forward slowly. You mean the part where I made you forget how to speak? He smirked, set the mug down, closed the distance, and when he reached for her, his hand didn't just land on her waist, it gripped, firm and possessive. You wore me out, he murmured against her neck. She tilted her head back, lips parting as his mouth brushed her skin. No, she whispered. We wore each other out. His breath warmed her collarbone. Still want more. I know. They didn't make it back to the bedroom. He lifted her onto the counter with practiced ease. The robe parted at her thighs. She didn't close it. He slid the fabric off her shoulder. Slowly, watching her, waiting. She didn't rush him, because this was where the heat lived, not just in the act, but in the anticipation, the pause, the way he asked for permission without a single word. Her fingers traced the line of his abs upward until they hooked into his waistband. He inhaled sharply. She leaned in, lips ghosting across his jaw. You keep looking at me like that, Tony. Like what? He said hoarsely. Like I'm yours. His hand tightened on her thigh. You are. What followed wasn't just sex. It was deeper, deliberate, unapologetic. She took control first. Slow kisses, straddling him on the counter, guiding his hands, moaning into his mouth like she knew exactly how he liked to be touched. Then he flipped the script, lifted her again, carried her through the hallway, every kiss hotter, every press of skin more desperate. He laid her down on the velvet chaise in the sitting room, not because the bed wasn't close, but because he wanted to see her fully in the morning light. Every inch, every arch, every gasp. He didn't just make love to her. He claimed her, with lips, with breath, with hands that didn't ask for space, only surrender. She gave it, willingly. When it was over, he didn't move. He hovered above her, forehead against hers, both of them panting, their skins slick, her legs still wrapped around him. No words, because nothing needed to be said. They had crossed the threshold, not with noise, but with fire. Later, wrapped in a throw blanket on the chaise, she nestled into his side. He traced the inside of her thigh absent-mindedly. Wasn't planning this, he murmured. She smiled against his chest. Good, because if you were, I might not have trusted it. He looked down. But you trust this? I trust you. When you're like this, Tony kissed the top of her head. No pressure, just presence. They spent the afternoon wrapped in the kind of intimacy that didn't need explanation. She wore his shirt. He couldn't stop watching her in it. They danced slowly in the kitchen to an old R&B song. Bare feet, bare skin, warm fingers sliding under hems and over hips. She cooked barefoot while he came up behind her, one hand on her waist, the other brushing her inner thigh, teasing. Trying to distract me? She said, voice low. I want you to burn the food, he growled into her neck. So we stay hungry longer. She turned, laughing, and he kissed her again. Soft, deep, like he wanted to taste her laugh. By evening, they were on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, sharing wine, legs tangled under it. The mansion no longer felt like a project. It felt like home. Tony leaned back, watching the sky fade from orange to navy. You were the missing piece, he said quietly. Janelle turned her head toward him. I didn't know it until you were here. But now? I don't want this house without you in it. She didn't answer right away. She ran her fingers along his thigh, then looked up. I wasn't planning to stay, she said softly. But now? She kissed his shoulder. Now I can't imagine leaving. The morning light touched her skin, like it knew where to linger. Janelle stretched slowly beneath the sheets, muscles tender, breath steady. She reached across the bed. He was gone, but the space he left behind was still warm. A soft hum floated in from the hallway. Miles Davis, slow and low. She smiled. No words had been spoken last night about what this was, but she didn't need a definition. She had music in the air, warmth in the bed, and the scent of him clinging to her skin. That was enough. She slid from under the covers, naked, unbothered. His button-down from yesterday lay crumpled on the chair. She slipped it on. No bra, no panties, just that shirt brushing her bare thighs, smelling like him. She found him in the kitchen, barefoot, relaxed, working the stove like it was part of his morning ritual. He didn't hear her come in. She stood in the doorway for a moment, watching. This man, this billionaire who once lived like his walls were furniture, was now humming to jazz while flipping eggs. For her. She stepped closer, slowly. He felt her before he saw her, turned. His eyes moved over her, slowly, shamelessly. The shirt she wore, the legs she didn't cover, the soft skin that caught sunlight like silk. "You keep walking around like that," he murmured, "and I'll burn the damn eggs." She grinned, crossing her arms so the shirt opened just slightly more. "Then we'll have breakfast later." He put the spatula down, moved toward her. She stayed still, waiting, wanting. When he reached her, his fingers slipped under the hem of the shirt, grazing her thighs, lifting slightly, then dropping. "Not yet," he whispered. "I want this memory to start with breakfast, not fire." Janelle's eyes narrowed, teasing. "You're evolving." Tony brushed a kiss against her lips. "I'm pacing." They ate together in the sunroom, bare legs touching under the table, her hand stealing bits of bacon from his plate, his fingers trailing down the back of her chair like he wasn't ready to let go. It wasn't lust this time. It was presence. She laughed at his comment about overcooked toast. He kissed her cheek mid-laugh. Soft, subtle, intimate. Later, he followed her to her suite, watched her brush her hair in the mirror. He leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, shirt slightly open. "You always move like that?" he asked. "Like what?" "Like you know I'm watching." She met his eyes in the mirror. "That's because I do." He stepped forward, took the brush from her hand, started brushing her hair slowly, deliberately, not because she needed help, but because he wanted to learn the rhythm of her. "You know," he said, "I used to hate this house." "Why?" She whispered. "Because it never felt like mine. It was big, expensive, impressive, but cold." He set the brush down, pressed his chest against her back, his arms wrapped around her waist. "And now?" He kissed the curve of her shoulder. "It feels like I never want to sell it." She turned in his arms, eyes searching his. "You're not serious." "I am." He took her hand, led her through the house, past the hallway she redesigned, the library she softened, kitchen they danced in, to the grand room with the high windows, where the morning sun poured in, where she first challenged him. He turned to her. "This house was an investment, a property." She waited. "But now it's a space where I sleep next to peace, wake up to laughter, eat food that tastes like home, listen to music that sounds like memory." He stepped closer. "And I want to stay," her breath caught, "with you." She didn't answer right away. She stepped into his arms, held him tight. No conditions, no speeches, just her lips to his neck, her body pressed against his, her answer wrapped in warmth. He held her longer than he needed to, because he knew this wasn't a win. This was a beginning, and beginnings should be honored. Later, in the study, she drafted notes for the final design revisions. Tony leaned against the doorway, shirtless, casual. "I cancelled the listing," he said. She looked up. "Just like that?" No hesitation. Janelle smiled. "Well, then I guess I'll update the master plan." He crossed the room, leaned over her desk, kissed her temple. "Update the address too," he whispered. "Because this place is ours now." The morning light touched her skin like it knew where to linger. Janelle stretched slowly beneath the sheets, muscles tender, breath steady. She reached across the bed. He was gone, but the space he left behind was still warm. A soft hum floated in from the hallway. Miles Davis, slow and low. She smiled. No words had been spoken last night about what this was. But she didn't need a definition. She had music in the air, warmth in the bed, and the scent of him clinging to her skin. That was enough. She slid from under the covers, naked, unbothered. His button-down from yesterday lay crumpled on the chair. She slipped it on. No bra, no panties, just that shirt brushing her bare thighs, smelling like him. She found him in the kitchen, barefoot, relaxed, working the stove like it was part of his morning ritual. He didn't hear her come in. She stood in the doorway for a moment, watching. This man, this billionaire who once lived like his walls were furniture, was now humming to jazz while flipping eggs. For her, she stepped closer, slowly. He felt her before he saw her, turned. His eyes moved over her, slowly, shamelessly. The shirt she wore, the legs she didn't cover, the soft skin that caught sunlight like silk. "You keep walking around like that," he murmured, "and I'll burn the damn eggs." She grinned, crossing her arms so the shirt opened just slightly more. "Then, we'll have breakfast later." He put the spatula down, moved toward her. She stayed still, waiting, wanting. When he reached her, his fingers slipped under the hem of the shirt, grazing her thighs, lifting slightly, then dropping. "Not yet," he whispered. "I want this memory to start with breakfast, not fire." Janelle's eyes narrowed, teasing. "You're evolving." Tony brushed a kiss against her lips. "I'm pacing." They ate together in the sunroom, bare legs touching under the table, her hand stealing bits of bacon from his plate, his fingers trailing down the back of her chair like he wasn't ready to let go. It wasn't lust this time. It was presence. She laughed at his comment about overcooked toast. He kissed her cheek mid-laugh. Soft, subtle, intimate. Later, he followed her to her suite, watched her brush her hair in the mirror. He leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, shirt slightly open. "You always move like that?" he asked. "Like what?" "Like you know I'm watching." She met his eyes in the mirror. "That's because I do." He stepped forward, took the brush from her hand, started brushing her hair slowly, deliberately, not because she needed help, but because he wanted to learn the rhythm of her. "You know," he said, "I used to hate this house." "Why?" she whispered. "Because it never felt like mine. It was big, expensive, impressive, but cold." He set the brush down, pressed his chest against her back, his arms wrapped around her waist. "And now?" He kissed the curve of her shoulder. "It feels like I never want to sell it." She turned in his arms, eyes searching his. "You're not serious." "I am." He took her hand, led her through the house, past the hallway she redesigned, the library she softened, the kitchen they danced in, to the grand room with the high windows, where the morning sun poured in, where she first challenged him. He turned to her. This house was an investment, a property. She waited. "But now, it's a space where I sleep next to peace, wake up to laughter, eat food that tastes like home, listen to music that sounds like memory." He stepped closer. "And I want to stay." Her breath caught. She didn't answer right away. She stepped into his arms, held him tight. No conditions, no speeches, just her lips to his neck, her body pressed against his, her answer wrapped in warmth. He held her longer than he needed to, because he knew this wasn't a win. This was a beginning, and beginnings should be honored. Later, in the study, she drafted notes for the final design revisions. Tony leaned against the doorway, shirtless, casual. "I cancelled the listing," he said. She looked up. "Just like that?" No hesitation. Janelle smiled. "Well, then, I guess I'll update the master plan." He crossed the room, leaned over her desk, kissed her temple. "Update the address too," he whispered. "Because this place is ours now." The storm never came. Not the kind outside, the one inside. The one Tony had always braced for whenever something felt too good, too steady, too close. But with Janelle, there was no crash, no chaos. Just the quiet rhythm of presence. the kind of calm that made a man want to stay still. He watched her from the bedroom doorway. She was standing near the window, the morning light painting her in gold. His white dress shirt barely skimmed her thighs, hair loose, eyes soft, unaware of how she completely reset the atmosphere in every room she entered. "You're staring," she said without turning. "I always do." She turned her head slightly. "You don't say much when you look at me like that. That's because I'm afraid if I speak, I'll ruin the way you look in my mind." She smiled. "Slow. Say it anyway." Tony stepped forward. "Every time I see you in my space," he said, "I realize it's not mine anymore." She arched a brow. "Possession?" He shook his head. "Belonging." He walked to her slowly, hands sliding around her waist, mouth finding the curve of her neck. She leaned into him without resistance. No tension, no hesitation. "I cancelled more than a sale last week," he whispered. She said nothing. He turned her gently in his arms, looked her straight in the eye. "I cancelled the version of me that believed love had to hurt." Her lips parted. "I used to think intimacy was something you bought, managed, maintained. And now?" she asked softly. He rested his forehead against hers. "Now I know it's a room I walk into and find you." They kissed, not with urgency, with certainty, hands moving slowly, breath deepening, bodies remembering. Tony slipped the shirt from her shoulders, let it fall to the floor. He stood there, taking her in, not with hunger, with awe. "You undo me without even trying," he said. Janelle stepped closer, fingers unfastening his waistband. "I'm not here to undo you," she whispered. "I'm here to keep you open." They sank into it, together, skin to skin, mouth to mouth, whispers between breaths. Tony kissed every inch of her like he was learning a language, and she responded in moans, touches, and the sweet rhythm of trust. There was no performance, no chase, only connection. After, he lay beside her, one arm under her head, the other tracing slow circles on her bare back. "You still planning to leave when the job's done?" he asked quietly. She tilted her head up. "Is the job done?" He looked at her. "Not if I get to redesign my future. With me, only with you." He reached over to the nightstand, pulled out a small, flat box, black velvet. He placed it in her palm. She didn't open it right away. "Tony, just look." She opened the box. Inside, a key, simple, silver, clean, the same one he gave her the day she walked into the mansion. But this time, it had a tag, "Our home." Janelle swallowed. "I want you to stay," he said, "not as a guest, not as an employee, but as the woman who turned my house into a life." She closed the box, looked at him. "I never planned to fall for you. I never hoped someone would. But now," she said, voice low, "I don't want to build anything that doesn't have you in it." He kissed her slowly, and in that kiss, there was no fear, only choice. They walked the halls later that day, hand in hand. No paint samples, no floor plans, no deadlines. Just two people who no longer needed definitions. Because they were the design. He didn't give her a ring. She didn't need one. She had a room, a rhythm, a man who saw her. And he had a woman who never asked him to be less. That night, she unpacked the last of her bags. He stood in the doorway again, same way he had that first day. But this time, she walked up to him, pressed her lips to his, and whispered, "This isn't your house anymore." He smiled. "I know. If you've ever built something real with someone, not just a relationship, but a life, you know it's not the house that makes it home. It's the person who walks in and makes silence feel like music." If you felt that in Janelle and Tony's story, drop a comment below and tell me your favorite moment. Tap the like button if you believe love gets better when it's intentional. And don't forget to subscribe, because on this channel, love stories always leave you feeling something. See you in the next one.